All right, and with us right now, we've got Brian Orr, AKA DJ Twist, and is also, now this is crazy. Like, most of the times when you, ladies and gentlemen, DJ Twist, also the founder and CEO of Keaton Capital.
I haven't worked that into my onstage intros yet, but I might put it in there. Who knows?
Yeah, right. So, okay. So obviously the big thing is, we're going to be talking about now. I was an amateur DJ. Like, I DJ'd for about a year in my last year in the Navy. I got to DJ every single week at the Officers Club. And then during college, I was pretty much just a wedding DJ. I did a few other parties, but mainly weddings. Mm-hmm. Man, it's so much fun. Since then, I kind of got into corporate life and kind of really gave that up. I DJ'd maybe once or twice a year, like church dances or something like that. And, some neighborhood parties a few times, but oh man, I miss it. It's so much fun. Right. And I know that you've actually retired a few times.
Yeah, I've given it up a few times. My DJ path is sort of interesting. I started in the 90s. Wow. On vinyl, I learned the old school way. I learned under a guy who never let me touch the records. It was interesting. Like, I was basically, this is bedroom DJs that we weren't in studios or anything yet. So I would just sit in his house after school and just watch him play. And he said, when you're ready, then I'll let you do it for yourself. Yeah. So, I started carrying records for him. I would be at the clubs in the 90s. I was 15. We were in the clubs and, I was carrying records for him on Friday night, just sitting there and just worshiping his sets. Extremely talented DJ. We actually live in the same city again now. His name is Tommy Tom, DJ Tommy Tom, #1 influence for me directly from DJing. I DJed through college, and, when I graduated college, it was the time for me to grow up. And I needed to leave the DJ world behind me because I needed to enter the corporate world and so on. So I stopped DJing, no more nightclubs. Very few, if any, I did some mobile stuff. Like you mentioned, weddings. I was back in New York. So there's christenings, there's Sweet 16s, there's 1,000 different events to DJ at in New York, all the time. So I slowly remained, DJing throughout the years, but it was a weekend thing. I retired. I was working 9 to 5, and come around the time 2006, 2007, I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and my buddy invited me out to the city, and he said, come on, hang out. We've been missing you. You've been in the house for so long, and I went back out and I discovered for the first time the technology that now exists behind DJing. It was another good friend, incredible inspiration for me, named DJ Scissorhands, who was DJing at this club in the city, and he had his computer there up in front of him. He still had turntables, but he had his computer up in front of him, and he didn't have any records behind him. And I was like, what is going on? What are you doing? He's like, it's crazy. The computer hosts all the music now, and it runs as an interface, like it sends a digital signal to this coded vinyl, and you can control the record, but you don't have to carry records anymore. I was like, well, that sounds tempting. So I discovered the software program called Serato at that time, and got back into DJing and started DJing again for a few years. And I think sometime in the early 2010s or so, I took another hiatus for personal reasons. And then in 2017, I made the big official retirement, which lasted about 18 months because now I'm back DJing again. So yeah, I just can't stay away.
So where did Keaton Capital come about?
So Keaton Capital is a real estate investment company. I started investing in real estate about 4 years ago, mostly through single family real estates. I was living in Vegas. My girlfriend was living in Charlotte, where I am now. And my mother is in Charlotte, and I would be coming back and forth to Charlotte and spending time with her, who's now my wife. In that time, basically staying at mom's house. Mom was an HGTV junkie. And just like most of us over the past 5 to 7 years that got involved in real estate, it was through some HGTV inspiration. So we bought our first house, my mother and I as partners, and flipped our first property. I forget what year it was.
Oh my gosh.
And then went for about the next 3 or 4 years in single family. Keaton Capital is all of about 4 months old. I discovered the benefits of multifamily real estate through just extensive research and learning and training and seminars and YouTube and conferences and everything, and decided that multifamily real estate was the way to go. So I was in contract for a 10-unit property that was still partnership with my mother and I, and decided that it was time to explore the opportunity of syndication, multifamily real estate, bringing in other partners to leverage bigger deals.
Yeah.
And Keaton Capital was born.
Wow. So today, as with, every guest on the Thoughtful Entrepreneur, you're doing good business, right? Talk about
I'm working on it.
The kind of the success that you've been able to create.
Yeah. So I have the dual streams of incomes right now. So I still have the Twist Life and DJ Twist, and I'm still fairly successful, although I have peeled back a little bit from my touring the world kind of days. And with the real estate business, we're scaling. I just started. I mean, I'm still early, but we are successful. I have 15 units under management right now.
Wow.
And I am shopping currently for our next deal, which is anywhere from 25 to 50 units, and just building my investor portfolio, my asset portfolio, and providing substantial returns on our deals for myself and for our investors.
And so when you say your investors, how does that model work?
So the syndication model is fairly complicated, and I'm still learning it, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
My mother has been my partner for our first 4 or 5 deals, with the idea that we can accelerate her retirement. In the success that we've had, and probably the years that we've shaved off her required work, her required 9 to 5, that we now have developed streams of income for her to accelerate her retirement. I thought about how can I do this for more people, and that's what the syndication really is. It's just a collective of investors that come together in a partnership. I operate as the general partner, and Keaton Capital operates as the general partner, in which case we manage all of the required operations to acquire the property, manage the property, and then dispose of the property when the time is right.
Yeah. And so in terms of like your work now as a DJ, just so people understand, if you go out on the road and you're doing some big events, you can make pretty good money, right? It's kind of funny. My wife went to school with Cascade.
Nice.
Yeah, they were actually family friends too. They, of course, long after, I think after the first year of college or whatever, they kind of, lost touch or whatever. Yeah, Ryan Radden. So that dude makes some money.
Yeah, he does. He does pretty well for himself. There's a lot of money in the DJ world right now. There's not as big of a market for exclusively DJs. Like, I'm a DJ, I'm not a producer. Cascade is a producer.
Yeah.
The bigger names that you probably know, that your average person knows, are producers, and they've achieved this level of celebrity by making good music, and then being placed at the forefront of the performance of that music. And most of them started as DJs,
right?
And through the technology and whatever else, they're producers now. They have record deals, and they're famous that way, and they get big money. They have huge followings, and people show up to hear them DJ. I've dabbled my toe in the production world. I've never been quite as successful as I wanted to be in that world. So I get paid on a little bit of a different scale than Cascade, but there is a good monetary upside in traveling, and tons of additional benefits, like, just seeing the world and being on stage and being on TV and being in magazines and all of that stuff. So I look at that success as not just necessarily the monetary success, but, the legacy that I can leave behind as well.
So obviously the question that I absolutely have to ask is, what has DJing taught you about success in business, or what lessons have you learned that have really helped you now in real estate? And you could see, that there's some skills that you have that as a performing artist that maybe a lot of other people don't have.
What's interesting, I would lean less from the actual performance aspect of it, but it's the conducting of the business aspect of it. So I always conducted my DJ business as a business. And Smart. The difference between, the reason why I've had some success and why I've had some social exposure and TV exposure and international exposure is because I operated it fundamentally as a business. And then the performance was just the tool that allowed me to continue to do the business. But the networking, the adaptability, the international business, the human relations, just, having integrity, showing up on time, there's a large ego that I had to overcome for myself as I started achieving a little bit of success. And I had, I got knocked back a few pegs here and there, and overcoming that taught me a lot in just staying humble and making sure that I don't know how to really phrase that, but making sure that I'm operating with integrity, with responsibility, and with empathy, and understanding that there's so many other moving parts involved in just me being on stage. That's so much more than me being on stage. And I think that learning those lessons is really helping me in any of the other businesses that I've been involved in, and making sure that integrity first and foremost, and then, the ability to change and adapt and twist as need be.
So you mentioned something in regards to ego that I think could actually be a pretty good lesson for. There's a lot of people that listen to this podcast. They're on their way. They're doing pretty good stuff in business. They got a good sized team going. They're gunning for 7-8 figures. And when you finally get to that point after you've really scrapped it out for a number of years, or in some cases a decade or more, right? You get to that point, and it can be tempting to let your ego get in the way. And so I guess my question to you would be, what do you imagine the warning signs of an ego that is probably unhelpful? Like, what warning signs would you look for to say, I need to check myself right now?
Okay. If I had to think about something, I would have to say post self-awareness, and realizing the times that I did have, my ego was overinflated. I've gotten to that point and checked myself, right? So I think that that's what the question you're asking is. I think, and in its easiest terms, when you expect someone else to do something for you, that's an ego check. Like, if I expect my assistant to bring me coffee, for me personally, I think that's an ego check. Like, who are you? Why? That's not what they're here for. When you start expecting things of other people that you think that they are there to serve you in some capacity. Right. I think that's a great benchmark for an ego check.
Yeah. John Mulaney is a comedian. He's got 3 stand-ups on Netflix. They're just hilarious.
I know him. He's hilarious.
And he shares some stories about being on Saturday Night Live, where he was a writer. And he says, he asked a question. He goes, so are celebrities weird? Yes. But maybe not. I mean, if you are like Mick Jagger, where, for 40, 50 years now, he's he's had everything he could, all he has to do is snap his fingers and get anything he wants, right? Most of us, John Mulaney will talk about like, it's like, if I want a Pepsi, I'll go, I'm sorry, could I bother you for a Pepsi? Right? And whereas like Mick Jagger, oh, Pepsi now.
Right? If he even needs to. I mean, possibly 3 snaps just means Pepsi. And he doesn't even have to say it, right?
Exactly. Now, we're being silly, and I think a lot of us think that we're immune from that. But listen, I think that this is a good leadership lesson. And I think that where I like to get to, and I'm not perfect at this, but I think the type of leader that I prefer to be is the servant leader, right? Where yes, this is my particular position. Like I have to do the CEO stuff, but, I have an obligation to take care of my people. I want to help, I've got my dreams that I want to make true. I've got my customers' dreams. I want to make their dreams come true, but I also want to make my team members' dreams come true. So I need to know what it is that they want and what can I do to help them get that. And I think that, if I keep in all my interactions with them, how can I create those win-wins where I can truly care for them in a great CEO kind of way?
And that's wonderful.
I think that's my thoughts on that.
It's almost like you were listening in before we started recording, because I had 2 interns, my semester interns, start this morning.
Wow.
And I led the conversation with the interns with, tell me what your goals are for the semester.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're hoping to achieve out of this internship. And I want to give you an open door to, should we deviate from that in any way that you see, yes, you're an intern, you're going to have to do grunt work and stuff, right? It's not glorious. But if in any way we're moving too far, deviating from what's going to benefit you and your goals for your semester, for your future, open door, tell me. Let's realign and let's make sure that, although you are an intern, I'm here serving your purposes. And that's what's going to help us all be successful in the future. So it's so funny that you said those exact words. I mean, literally, this was an hour or so ago that I had that conversation with them.
So then, as far as now, are you, in terms of DJing, are you still actively DJing now?
I am. So I've stayed local. As I mentioned, I peeled back a little bit. I had 2 kids over the last 2 years, which sort of sparked my 2017 retirement. 2016, I was loaded. I was traveling overseas. I found out that we were pregnant with my first son while I was at JFK Airport on the way to Switzerland.
Wow.
I was traveling for, 2 to 3 weeks at a clip overseas doing gigs. And it was terrible because I was already pre-booked, as with scheduling, and my son was 6 weeks old and I was gone for another 2 weeks, and my son was 4 months old and I was gone for another 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it comes the end of 2016, first month of 2017, I have a 4-week tour, 1 week in Central America and 3 weeks in Europe. So I decided, okay, I'm going to bring Melissa, who was not my wife at the time, is now. I'm going to bring Melissa and Brian, and let's see how this goes. So I brought him with me for a month on the road, and it was upon my last gig, which actually ended up in Switzerland, coincidentally. And I decided, well, I don't really like being away from them, but I certainly can't travel with them. So I think it's time for me to hang this up. And that's when I retired in 2017. When I agreed to come back to DJing again in late 2018, it was with the condition that I don't travel all that much. So ideally, I've been staying local. I can put my kids to bed, go out and work, and come back and be there in the morning for breakfast. That said, the end of this month, I will be back in Switzerland for 3 gigs with just by myself. Last month I went to Germany for a couple of gigs just by myself. So we're sort of feeling out what it's like to be away, but for not as an extended period of time. And so far, so good.
Can I ask, and you can demur in any way you like,
Okay.
but a DJ at around your level, like what does a DJ at around your level, and again, be as vague as you want,
Okay.
But what do they earn?
Let's go to high hundreds to low thousands. Pretty much in that world.
Cool. So when you do an international gig, and then they're of course travel, they're obviously flying you out and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah. So it's different. Before, let's go rewind back to that 2008 era when I came back into DJing from the, when I discovered technology. I was getting paid $1,500 a night on a Tuesday.
Wow.
In New York. Like, I mean, we were crushing it.
Yeah.
Technology, as much as it's helped us, it's also hurt us,
because,
the barrier of entry for a DJ is, let's just say somebody with an iPad and an
iDJ Pro, which
an iDJ Pro. That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
you were going to say it.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what it was. So,
that's it. So I can. It's amazing what I can create with just an iPad and that controller. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this would have been so much more challenging. I remember, and you'd practice these transitions over and over and over again for your live set so that you could get it just right. And it takes a lot of work. It's like, it's like hiring a musician, DJing to do it right with the older technology, turntables. I mean, it's, that's what you're paying for, is you're paying for the countless hours of, knowing that art and that, just that right touch and that sort of thing.
And song selection. I mean, I used to spend hours every Tuesday, when the records came out at the record store, just listening and listening and listening. And you didn't have the option of having 50,000 songs on your hard drive. You know, rewinding a little further back to the vinyl days. Yeah. You could only play what you can carry. And that stuff was heavy. Yeah. So, with the technology now, it's interesting because it's decreased the barrier of entry to a point where it's near minimal, and you have to compete with that as a professional. So I have to find a way to prove to a buyer that, I have been doing this for so long, that I do have this type of experience, that I do have the ability to manipulate the crowd in a way that we desire them to be manipulated through the night, and not in a bad way. You know what I mean? By keeping the energy up and that sort of thing, and curating the music as the promoter or talent booker sees fit. But I'm competing against people who are super high tech savvy and have massive, social influence and that sort of thing, who might not necessarily have the skill set. You couldn't do that as a brain surgeon. Yeah. You can't do that as a lawyer. There's certain credentials and certain levels of testing and whatever that you have to go through. As a DJ, the barrier is zero. So it's tough. And I say that because there's the $1,500 a night Tuesday doesn't exist anymore. Because now we're competing with 85 guys and gals who are right down the block, who have access to the same technology as you, who can also show up. They have the same library as you. They have the same remixes as you. And the real challenge now is in differentiating yourself.
Yeah. And they're likely not spending time in the music store, right? They're just, they got that Spotify subscription. They're good.
Exactly. What are the 10 best songs out right now? And then that's what they play.
Right. Awesome. Well, Brian Orr, this has been really, really cool. You can go to Brian's website. It's thetwistlife.com. And Brian, you're also a podcaster. You've got a podcast called The Twist Life. Again, you can kind of look into Brian's work with Keaton Capital. There's information there. Looks like you got some great stories, on stage, that sort of thing. Again, this is all at thetwistlife.com. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate you having me on.